Hi friends, this video is in a continuation with the previous video on developing chatbots using an open source framework. In the last video we had seen how do we use the Rasa NLU component of it. If you have not seen that video or you have not in fact attempted those codes, then this particular video will make little sense because this is a pure play continuation of it. Since I didn't want to dump everything in a single session, we tried to split it. So my suggestion is, in case if you have not seen it or you have not attempted the code, you need to do that first, because some of the models which we have developed using the Rasa NLU will be used by the Rasa dialog part of it. So going straight into it, the Rasa dialog has the reason why we have this component is two main reasons. Number one, we need to tell the bot how to respond to each of the user interaction, which technically we call it as intents. So far what we have seen in the previous video is more like predicting which intent it belongs to. Rasa NLU just does that, but Rasa core will help in answering the user in the most natural way. And number two, which is the most important part of it, is assume that you have developed a bot, you have deployed, it works great, but in a due course of time you want to expand it, you want to make certain changes to it. The programmatic mind always thinks about going and doing a lot of programs, but remember we are in the world of AI where we want the machine to learn rather than we do a lot of if conditions, for and while, making it more and more complex. That is what we have been doing before the world of AI, right? So here, if you want to teach the machine to understand the dynamic change, this Rasa core dialog helps you to change the flow with a very little changes to the program, but more on the data part of it. Machine learning, always remember the basic is more the data, efficient and greater the response. The quality of response is directly proportionate to the amount of data which you use to train it. That's the crux of it. The programming part is very lean. It follows a template, right? So those are the two main things. And Rasa core, when you start with for the very first time, you'll find it little I'll not say difficult, but you'll find it little different than your typical programming models. Here it is more on data oriented, so it uses two main components. The number one component, what I will call is stories markdown file or stories.md file. MD is the abbreviation for markdown. And number two is a domain YML file, yet another markup language, that is the expansion of it, but there are certain things there. So you have a markup file and a stories file. So let's take it one by one. The domain file, as the name indicates, is the complete scope of the bot, wherein it talks about what are the types of intents it has to deal with, what are the, or I'll rather use the same language, what are the entities which you have in the bot, what are the intents which you are going to have, and entities will definitely take a value, right? So depending on that, you call it a slot. A slot is nothing but a bot memory. So it can be a text, which predominantly we will use. There are certain slots for the numbers which you call it a float or boolean. These are basically data types, but predominantly I have seen in most of the projects we make use of text. For example, if I say what is the weather in Berlin, Berlin is the entity and it takes a value of text, right? But there are other data types also, like a list and other things, but that is reserved for more complex bot programming. I'll not get in there. So you have to, and there is another thing called templates, which is nothing but your intents, like how do you respond. So if you have predicted an intent, what type of template you need to use. And then the last one is called as action. Action is pretty important, because 90% of the time your bot is not static, like you just respond back in a very static way, but it might differ. For example, weather in Berlin and weather in London and weather in Chennai is different. So based on the location, it has to go and query somewhere and has to let you know. Similarly, in an order tracker, depending on the order number, it will say that okay, your order is due tomorrow, or your order is in a cancel status, or your order is not even there, right? So that means that there is a backend logic which the bot needs to communicate, and that happens through this action, right? So let me summarize again. There are 5 main things which your domain file will contain. One is your slots, which is nothing but a data type, and the second thing is your entities. The third thing is your obviously your intents. Then you have your templates, the way in which you want to respond, and the action. The action will just denote a name, and you need to write a Python class wherein it will be invoked, saying that okay, now what action needs to be done. Assume that you are developing a more simple bot where you have all static messages, you don't even need action, right? So that is number one. Then the stories part of it, you need to write a flow saying that okay, when a bot interacts with you, how that story will look like. For example, the example which I have been looking is checking the weather, right? So it might be like, hi, the response is, hi, how can I help you? Hey, I need to know the weather today. Then the bot will respond, which location you are in. Then I say the location, say Mumbai, and then it says Mumbai, the weather is so and so. Then finally you say thank you, and it says bye. The other story can be the user directly comes and says goodbye and bye, because the user may not like a bot to chat with a bot. The third thing is probably a user might come and say, I want to know the weather in Chennai. He doesn't say hi, he doesn't say bye. But these are all the different variations. So again, similar to what you saw in NLU, the earlier session, right? You need to create a data stories file wherein you might add some story 1, story 2, story 3. But the great point in Rasa framework is it gives you a interactive trainer wherein the bot will respond in a way like depending on your query, and you can say that yes, the bot is right or wrong, and it will fine-tune its track. And once it is fine-tuned and you're given a solid okay, that itself will be taken as a story. So basically there are a couple of ways of creating a story. One, you can start opening a markdown file and type as many stories as you can, idealistic but not realistic way. Or other is take a group of friends, do a brainstorming and keep noting down stories. Again, a collaborative exercise, time consuming. Or you just type 1 or 2 stories and invoke a Rasa online interactive trainer, and the Rasa the trainer will the interactive training based on the model which you have created will start responding back to your query, and will say whether I'm on right track or not. We will in few minutes we will see that directly, and once you say yes, then it will keep answering you until you finish the conversation, and then finally update your story file with the conversation so that many stories can get auto-populated. Right? This is something similar to what you saw in NLU, wherein you had a GUI to type your intent rather than doing it all by yourself in a data.json. So that is the advantage of it. So once that is done, you have a full-fledged bot, but still remember, you have not integrated it. You have to integrate in your website or a Slack or a Facebook or anything, but that's for a different session or the final session of it. But today we are going to just deal with this part of it. Thank you. Okay, so continuing with our bot discussion, what we have seen is we are writing a very simple bot to know the weather of any given location. So that fundamentally means that you need to have a backend service which will give you the weather details by taking an input on any location which you have provided. The great point is we already have a site which is free. When you register it using your Google or Facebook credentials, it will give you that details back. It is an API enabled. So the site is here. I have just opened it. So this is apixu.com. You can sign up using any of your IDs. So it will give you a key. So that key, once you feed into any program which I'll show you, it will provide you the weather of any location. So basically it has a series of classes which are defined, which will not only give you the temperature, humidity and lot of details. You just need to collect it, parse it and send it back, right? So you need not worry about it. It is just it is already part of it. But if you have a different business, say for example you are into a banking industry, or you're into healthcare and a patient wants to know about the scheduling details, you already will have a backend logic. Just make it as an API enabled one and you can invoke it using a bot. In the very first example using Dialogflow, we oversimplified it. We didn't invoke an API, but just so that you know, even Dialogflow has the capabilities to define an environment variable and do that. Okay, so now getting on to it. So open your Anaconda, launch your Jupyter. I have already done it. Now, as I said, let's go one by one. So let me first start with the weather domain. So as I said, slots, the type is text. For example, what I told you is like, I want to know the weather in Mumbai. So Mumbai, it can take, Mumbai is an entity or the location, right? And the value it can take is type text. The other types which are talked about is Boolean, float for numeric, and categorized you have the list and other things, but we'll not get into it right now. The intents, there are only 3 intents we have: a greet, a goodbye, and inform intent. Entity is a location. The template, whenever there is a greet, you can say hello, how can I help, or you can keep adding. The Dialogflow will take one of it on a random basis. The goodbye intent, I have already added a couple of it saying that talk to you later, bye bye, or you can say thanks. Ask location, in case if the user doesn't say you the location, just he says that, hey, I want to know the weather outside. So where are you? So basically that means in what location. So it's a prompting thing. And the actions are, if you see the first 3 simple utter, that is utter greet or utter goodbye or an utter ask location. The 4th one is action weather, wherein we are going to invoke an external API. See, this is the one, right? You are going to invoke an external API and reply back. So tomorrow when your bot becomes, it has to enhance and feature, all you need to worry more and more about is only this weather domain, the domain file. And remember, this is the universe of the bot. Whatever the bot has to do, it has to find an entry here, whether it is a template or an entity or an action, right? The next thing we are going to see is stories.md. I just wrote a couple of stories 1 and 2. The other story got auto-generated, which you will see later. Here I just said story 1, greet, utter greet, then inform, utter greet and utter ask location, then you say bye and done. And you can write as many stories as you want. And the other thing I have just said, I want to know the location in Italy. It will invoke the action weather and it will give the result, and then you say bye and come out. You can even just to begin with write only one story, and then you make use of the interactive trainer to keep adding more and more. But this is more about the real data which will be used to train your Dialogflow thing, right? Now there is in both weather and in stories you have seen that there is an action weather which needs to invoke API. So I'm getting directly into this is the code which you have written. Again, this is purely your business logic. You can write whichever code you want, right? Initially when I was doing the testing, I just wrote only one line. Weather is absolutely fantastic. I didn't go and invoke any of the APIs. But more and more code if you write, you should also ensure that the performance doesn't drop. So keep it simple. In this case, I just invoke an API and get the result, parse it, and then just putting it back. I didn't do any complex calculation here. All those should be reserved at the backend, and you should be just deriving the results and popping it out because this shouldn't become a bottleneck, right? So you have written an action, and this is the action weather. So return action weather, if you see it here, this is what we have put it in the domain also, action weather. This is a change. If you are referring to the previous version of Rasa core, the way we write this action is a little bit different, but the recent version, they have made certain changes which are not backward compatible. So this code is available in the GitHub. Probably you can use it, and I will recommend you keep adding more and more actions and try. For example, you might enhance this bot saying that I want to know the weather of a place, and if the weather is good, you might want to know whether what are the nearby hotels available, or what is the flight ticket there, or probably you can compare the flight tickets versus the train ticket if at all the train is available from your current location, and then you can even keep a reservation of the hotel. So you can keep adding it. It is all doable, but do it one at a time so that you don't overcomplicate your logic. The Rasa code dialog remains the same. You're going to add few more methods and try it, but at the same time your troubleshooting shouldn't become so convoluted that you find bot development as a complex topic, right? Then getting on to the, this is the important thing. Now you have developed the stories, and you have, and this models the dialog. That is the reason I said you should have done your NLU part of it before coming here, because when you go to the weather bot and you go to models, this NLU in default weather bot, all this will be self-created once you have run the NLU part of the Rasa framework. This is not something which you did, but once you have run that, it would be here, and this metadata.json will be used by the Rasa code to do the prediction part of it. So if you have not done the previous video or you have not attempted the code, this code will not work because it makes use of the outcome of the Rasa NLU. Okay. Now the train.init, what it does is it takes your data file, it takes your and creates a model, and it stores the model, saying that okay, now based on these stories, this is how the dialog flow should be, and this is the model which is customized for this bot. So I'm not going to go in detail of it. If you need more specific inputs or anything, you can always mail me. So I'm just going to run it and I'll show you how a model is created. So we have initiated the run. It is going to take some time. So you have created a stories, you have created a domain.yml, right? And then you have created the action where you want to invoke the backend services, and then you have created a model based on it. It is taking some time. Let it go. Yep. It has processed all the stories which you have, and it has created it. Yep. Now if you go back to your weather bot models, it would have created a dialog flow. It will be there. Now what happens is, so your Rasa core is all ready. Now as I said, you want to add more and more stories. You want to see how your bot is responding. So there are two ways of doing it. One is the earlier version of Rasa core always tried it doing programmatically. Now there is a command line version as well. You need not write a Python code for it. So, but remember, now you have one service which will go and hit a API or hit a web server, take the response from the server and bring it back, like what is the temperature, weather, humidity, and etc., and all the details. And then there is an other server which is going to give you the response for all the user inputs. So fundamentally there needs to be two servers which needs to be started, because when you say I want to know the weather in Chennai, the API should be invoked and the website will give you back the details of weather details in Chennai. So that is one server. The other terminal you need to use for your simulation of your bot. So I have opened two terminals. So terminal 1, weather bot. So let me see, this is my working directory, exactly right. So let me, and this I'll give you, so go here. Now for action weather, whenever an action weather is invoked, it will hit this service and it will wait at an endpoint at this IP address. You can change it. I have defined an endpoint file. Let me open and show you. This is my endpoint file. It just has the local host and the webhook to part of it. You can make changes. Right now it is waiting for any request to come in. Now let me go to the second terminal. CD weatherbot. Yep, we are there. Okay, let me invoke the training. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to invoke the interactive trainer with the model which you have already created by running the init file. So it has already created it, and I'm saying that use this domain file, and these are the stories, and this is the NLU part of the weather bot, right? And all the responses can be directed to the endpoint YML, right? Or the location which is specified there. The previous version of Rasa framework made you extensive use of your command prompts or your as a IO channel, but now with the changes they have depreciated some of the features, and so this particular it requires your endpoint YML where you need to define from where to go and hit it, right? Now it will start, and it will tell the bot will get trained based on your inputs. Oops. Sorry, I think I made a mistake. Let me try. So we have a server running, which is the action endpoint, which waits for the action weather, and now we are going to run the interactive part of it. See, the directories might change. You might need to give the actual directories which is there as part of your weather bot, but those are smaller items. So you are giving here your model, your domain file, as well as your endpoint, which is nothing but the webhook waiting in the local host. Once I press enter, it is going to interact with you and going to learn if it is on the right track, and once you said yes, it is going to update the stories. Yep. Now the prompt will come and just give it as a couple of minutes, let it do the things. Yep. Now I'm saying hi. It says hi is being classified as an intent greet, and there are no entities part of it. Is this correct? Yes. Then it says it wants to respond back with utter greet. Say yes. Then the bot says, hello, how can I help? I think you're able to see the color difference. This is the one. Then it says, should I listen now? Say yes. Your input, I want to know the weather in Chennai. Now the bot says this is an inform intent and entity is Chennai. Chennai is the entity and the location is taken as Chennai. I have to put yes. Now it is going to invoke the action weather. You say yes. Now you have got the response back from the API. See? So you can keep training in this way, and every time the bot will keep asking you, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? So when you concur with it, it will go ahead and keep the conversation on. And if you say no, then it will say which intent should I have used, or which particular template should I have used, or which action should I invoke. So you are in a way teaching the machine how to interact with human, and all this learning will go and update the story file. This is a very interactive way of doing it. It's in fact gives you a lot of opportunities to keep changing, and tomorrow when you want to enhance this bot, all you need to do is go ahead to the domain file and keep adding what are the actions you want, the templates you want, and go ahead and rerun the bot with the init file. In case if I've added an action, you need to have the business logic as part of the action class, and then rerun the init part of it, which will create a new model, and probably you can go to the interactive trainer, keep adding more and more stories. the essence here is not the coding part but more of the data part. So this continues, and I say yes. Again I can say hello, this is a new story, and I say yes. Okay, it retains the location Chennai because it is the memory part of it is still having the Chennai. Now if I'm going to say yes, yes, I can say bye, and there are no entities, yes. So it is done, right? Now we can restart and do it, and you can restart and do a thing, weather in Berlin, for example. Yes. See, it has come in. So this is for you without needing to have a lot of people around, but keep adding the user stories to it. So I hope you would have enjoyed so far. The portion still missing, which we have not covered, is integration part of it, because as I said, Dialogflow has a out-of-box integration to all the Facebook and Slack, but here you need to do it a little bit of tying up is needed, but that is the easiest part of it. So far if you have come, you would have really appreciated the spacey part and how your text is getting converted into a vector and how it makes a prediction. It also tells you how to invoke your business logic behind, and how do you shape up a conversation, and how do you enhance a bot. So in fact I'll say 80% of this is the entire bot using Python and Rasa framework is done. The only left over is the integration to the screens. Do let me know if you have any questions. I know we went a little bit fast today, but all this code is available in GitHub, and these are all using the new features. And if you still have questions, you can put it to me through the query shammy@gmail.com, or you can put it directly in Rasa forum. In either case, you will get a response as early as possible. Thank you.